Okay, FDP, fraction, decimal, percent. Okay, when we start talking about fractions, decimals, and percents, just like we did the first time, our review idea is that we want each of these to be able to be equal to each other. For that to happen, we want to be able to turn a fraction into a decimal into a percent, using a fraction. So all of these really are kind of like in a triangle, as I showed earlier this year, fraction, decimal, percent. Okay, so you can go from fraction to percent, decimal to percent, or decimal to fraction, or fraction to decimal. Okay, so you should be able to go in all different directions. So if I gave you a fraction of 1/5, right? Well, the first thing that we have to remember is step one to get to it to be a decimal is we need to remember that Norm is on top, Donkey is on bottom. That if we were to turn it, we would have Norman in the house and Donkey outside. So this is 1 divided by 5. These two are equal. There was a question in that packet that we were doing, and one of the questions was to see if you knew how to write 1 divided by 5 um, with that division sign, or with this division sign and use of a fraction. Okay, so remember, in math, there's always multiple ways that you can write something. Okay, well, if this is 1/5, that means it's less than 1, right? We know that it's one part out of 5 whole. Okay, I have 1 part out of 5. Okay, now what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm looking for what's equivalent to this piece right here out of the entire set. Okay, so then how many times will 5 go into 1? 5 times what is 1? Well, there's nothing. So then that would be a 0. Put your decimal, add a 0 down here. Now 5 times what is 10? That would be 2. Okay? Now if this particular piece, this 1/5, right, is also equivalent to 0.20, because when you finish this, it's 10 and that equals 0, right? Okay, so, and I'm just going to draw this little piece right here so you don't get confused. This 0 goes with this equation. So if we have 2/5, then we take 0.20, and now we will go to 0.40. If we have 3/5, it would 0.60. 4/5, 0.80, and 5/5 equals 1.0. If you notice, you're jumping each of these by 0.20, each one by 0.20, until you get your total of 5. Okay? So that is how you turn a fraction to a decimal. Now, if I want to take this decimal And I want to find out how much, remember this is equal to 1/5, and I want to find out how much percent it is. I'm going to move my decimal twice, and I have 20%. Now, if we look at it in the way of part to whole, 1/5 is 20%. So 2/5 would be 40%. 3/5 would be 60%. 4/5 would be 80%. And 5/5 would be 100%. If you have all of that, if you have 5/5, you have a total of 100%. And I'm just going to put a little arrow here and write that this is actually 20%, the shaded part. Okay? So we went from fraction to decimal. We went from fraction to decimal by doing this. Okay? So I'm going to put a little thing around here, and this is going from fraction to decimal. Okay, and then this piece right here is going from decimal to percent. I'm just going to draw the sign. So could we go from percent to fraction? Yes, we can. Because what percent is each one? If you know that 3/5 is equal to 60, then you can take it, go back, and put your decimal. You can go back the other direction. If you're going from percent to fraction, you can move your decimal back the other direction. So how do you know when to do that? Well, if you are looking for a percent, you have 100, right? And that 100 has 2 zeros underlined, both of the zeros. So I'm going to make sure that when I look at my 20, that's a whole number. So I want that whole number to become a piece, a part of that whole. So I'm going to move my decimal over 1 twice, and now I have 20. Okay, I have 0.20. So I went from 20% to 0.20. And if I want to go 0.20, then I'm going to be able to divide by the number that I need so that I can find the fraction. Okay, so let's try another one.